this time of year in particular, but all the time in general, we live in gratitude, or it's our intention to live in gratitude. So, this turn of phrase, evidence of God, that came through as a thought I did not think, this happens to me from time to time when I'm in silence. Something will bubble up, and it is a thought that I did not think, and this is one of them. And it's pertinent for today's discussion because we are very well versed in talking about gratitude and in talking about focusing on gratitude, focusing on the good, the true and the beautiful, and what we're grateful for. And as we give our attention to those things, then it expands in our life. So this is very common ground for all of us, right? Is there anybody for whom this is a new thought? No. Okay. This is a well-trod path, and I don't mean to diminish it by saying that it's well-trodden. What I'm suggesting is that there is another way, another perspective by which we can come at this practice that goes deeper. So I want to start by bringing the conversation into the room with a few little prompt questions. Okay, so it's pop quiz time. I hope you all studied. We don't have to. We don't have to. So I would invite anyone who would like to tell us in the group briefly about your gratitude practice. And I had Nancy in mind when I...
I've had a gratitude practice for many, many years now. But what I do is I have a gratitude journal. And probably many of you know about having gratitude journals. But a lot of people say, oh, just write 3 things down that you're grateful for. Well, I expanded it to 10 because I found that, you're always grateful for your family or for dinner or whatever. But I found that after 3, you really have to really think about what you're grateful for to get 10. And what I found out is that what I do anyway is I go over my day. And it's a great time to go over your day when you're getting ready for bed or whatever. And just to pick out those things that happened in my day that I'm really grateful for. And so I have stacks and stacks and stacks of journals that I have gone over the years of having this gratitude practice. And it becomes so embedded within me because I think about, like when you're traveling or something like that and you don't want to bring your journal or whatever, but it's like I can't stop it. It's really weird because I can't. And I often find that what I said earlier in that reading, what you appreciate appreciates. So what you're grateful for in your life expands. And I've seen that over and over and over again. So that's my little gratitude practice.
Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else want to add? Okay. Hearing none. The second question is, and this is for anyone who would like to opine. Describe how your life is different when you actively practice noticing that which you are grateful for. And briefly, but be very specific. How is your life different? And Nancy, you'll hand that microphone to Carol.
I can sum it up with just one word: joyful.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for being my plant today.
In my 20s and even early 30s, I wanted things to change in my life. And when I started a much deeper spiritual practice, what I find now is that wonderful people are drawn to me, joyful experiences happen in my life, my days just unfold with grace and ease, and I'm just joyful. And it really changed my life.
There's that joy word again. I sense a theme. Okay. And wait.
People on Zoom can hear you.
I view my life with a different set of glasses when I'm practicing gratitude. All the same circumstances could be happening, and I can feel much different about it because of practicing gratitude, where I can have the same home and the same job and the same car, or just all of the same stuff, and gratitude really is this vehicle for me to get into like this peace and contentment, which are like some of the greatest feelings in my heart, where I'm just like, wow, I'm so content with my life, and simple things just like a heater and a hot water heater. When you go camping, you really forget like how incredible those things are. And when you're, sleeping outside in the cold, it's like, wow, I'm really thankful for that heater in my little apartment. So, thank you.
Hang on to that microphone for a second, though, because I'm going to ask you another question. Are you more aware of the good working in your life when you are alone or with others? And that question is open to anyone who wants to, but I'm pretty sure Alyssa has. Is it easier to be aware of the good in your life when you're alone or when you're with others? And there's no right answer. I'm just interested in your perspective.
Can I say one thing? When I'm alone, I can hear my inner voice pretty clearly, and have this neat conversation with my intuition or higher self. And then I guess it's also in a balanced perspective because, for instance, when I'm hiking with my mom in the woods, it's a huge thing that I'm grateful for. My little family, Benny and Shasta and Diane. So thank you.
I think Alyssa said it really well. I think they're kind of the different circumstances create different sorts of feelings. And the kind of contemplative gratitude that you have when you're alone and you have kind of time to really focus on observing and thinking about it, that builds. But then when you're with people, that's kind of the fun and the joy,
That's where it gets
You're in the
that's where
experience
it
of it.
expresses, right?
Right.
Okay. Yes. Carol Delbon. Hi. Oh, you
Hi,
turned your face.
everybody. Good morning. Yes, I was thinking that probably when I'm out and about with people, how I become more grateful. Oops, I guess
Oh,
I'm
oh,
out of the picture, which is okay. Um, yeah, I am just so grateful for people, how kind they are. And you would not think in a city like Sacramento that you would come in contact with this, but you do. And I have wonderful neighbors. I'm always grateful when they help me out. And I don't know, I'm not the oldest one on the block, but that might have something to do with it. But anyway, I appreciate everybody and how kind they are. And everybody there, of course. I'm in gratitude for the center being there. I just wish I could be there. So anyway, thank you. It's
thank
a
you,
good topic.
Carol. You are with us. You're here virtually, but we feel your presence too. So,
Oh, thank you.
oh, so lovely to see you. So, here's another interesting question. Is there ever a sense of shame around gratitude? Like you could do it wrong or not enough? Anybody ever have a twinge of, oh my gosh, I have so much to be grateful for. Why am I so miserable? Anything like that? I was thinking, talking about hot running water. I was thinking about that just yesterday. That's sort of really interesting. It came up in the conversation around camping again about, oh, a hot shower when you're camping, that's like cheating. That's like, like you're not even camping. Okay, so having explored some of your ideas and experiences and understanding about gratitude, are you willing to shift a traditional and well-worn path to a deeper and more intentional practice? Yeah? Yeah. Because we're always at the green and growing edge of becoming more of what we are. Expansion is the nature of God, therefore it's the nature of our beings to expand. So it begins with a new understanding and a willingness to let go of some of our most deeply held beliefs. Namely, our judgments around right and wrong. That's a very well developed characteristic of my own life. I have an overdeveloped sense of right and wrong. That's wrong. This is the right way to do it. I have to be willing to let go of that. Not to say that you abandon your innate sense of divine right order, but that you let go of the judgment that clings to that part of your identity. Yeah.
Would you say that you have to be open and willing to explore the possibilities?
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to look at it because that whole idea around our judgments, around right and wrong, good and evil, light and dark, worthy and unworthy. We're going to take just maybe 5 minutes, and I'm going to guide you into a meditation to answer just that question about whether or not we're willing.
Did you have something? I just wanted to say that the more I evolve and learn about myself and my mistakes and my previous judgments and really look at them, I realize that I only know a little. The more I learn, the more I evolve, the more I know that I don't know. And that I know that it's only by divine guidance and grace that my life is what it is today. Yeah. It wasn't any of my doing. So that humbles me.
Thank you, Diana.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so get comfortable. Find a good neutral posture. Take like 3 deep breaths. And now bring into mind your gratitude journal, if you have one. If you're not in the habit of keeping a written list, just bring to mind what first comes through to you when someone says, "What are you grateful for?" At the very top of mind will usually be things like family and loved ones, and health and well-being, home and livelihood, and those things that we find fun and enjoyable. Just take a couple of minutes bringing all of those ideas to mind. This will likely take you down memory lane. And very possibly, the longer you contemplate all of these relationships, circumstances, conditions, experiences, the further down the path we go in thinking about all of these things that we are so grateful for, what is likely to happen is a little idea creeping in about the lack of these things. Maybe it would be remembering a time when I didn't have that relationship, or thinking about something I'm so grateful for and feeling just a little shadow of fear if I should lose that thing or that person. And I'm starting to see a little of the shadow nature of everything that I'm grateful for. And there may be a question about my worthiness. How is it that I enjoy so much when so much of the world is in lack? And then I think further about all of these blessings in my life. And I recognize that for many of them, there's a possibility of damage or loss, or even the possibility of taking one or more of these things so for granted that they don't really move the needle in my heart anymore. I'm just used to it. I'll breathe this in. And I bring my thought back to the beginning of this process, when I was simply recognizing and acknowledging all of the blessings in my life. And now I see beyond the surface. Let's take one more deep breath together. And bring our attention back into the room. And I'll acknowledge that that meditation was not meant to be a bummer. It was an exercise in seeing past the surface, in really exploring what else is going on when we're doing our gratitude practice. So I wanted to write some funny, pithy thing about how Ernest Holmes and Sherlock Holmes have a lot in common, but I really couldn't get anything together around this. But I'd like to invite this part of this little shift about our gratitude practice is, what if we put aside our gratitude journal and we picked up a field journal, like a field notebook? So all of a sudden we become explorers and we start looking at all of these things in our life from the perspective of someone who's just discovering this new land, this new landscape. And we don't have labels for things. So I meet this person and I'm just so touched by this person, but I don't know your name. I don't know what you do for a living. I don't know where you live. I don't have any of these labels or any of these opinions or judgments about who you are, and I can't prejudge anything. I just know that I met you and it was just an amazing, lovely experience. Or I'm walking in nature and I encounter a field of wildflowers. I don't know their names. I don't know that some people call them weeds. I think of this often because I think in my neighborhood when I'm walking around, there's a lot of things like yarrow and Queen Anne's lace and things like that, and I know some people call those things weeds, and they say they're invasive, and they say they must be eradicated. I don't know. They're flowers. They're beautiful. So the invitation is to not to abandon your practice as you've had for many, many years. Just maybe shift your perspective on it a little bit. So now we're being asked to foster the sense of appreciation without conditions, okay, without qualifiers. I am going to look upon that flower growing in the field and see the beauty of it without putting a label to it and deciding whether or not it should be eradicated or whether or not it should be propagated because there's profit to be made. None of these things matter. It's just stripped down to the core experience of witnessing the good, the true, and the beautiful all around us. So I have a little kind of an example. I don't know if I've shared this book before or not. This book is called The Book of Delights by Ross Gay. And he is an African-American man who's a poet and an essayist, and he actually teaches at, I think, Indiana University, I think. Anyway, I found out about this person because he was being interviewed on a podcast that I was listening to. And I was just so struck. So instead of having a gratitude journal, he calls his The Book of Delights. And he writes little essays about things. So I picked out a few of these to share with you just to give you a fresh idea. So if you're like struggling to come up with 10 things to write in your gratitude journal every day, or you haven't started one but you want to start one but it sounds kind of intimidating or whatever, he has a completely different perspective on it. He doesn't list things. This is like a field notebook for an explorer in the way he sees the world. So this one I wanted to share. It's called The Purple Comets of Spring. On the table before me, like a tarot reading, are 4 purple flowers, all of them collected on the 5-minute walk from my house to my office. To the far left is a purple butterfly, a violet. Next to that is some type of mint that comes up this time of year and makes a kind of pyramid of leaves, a steeple of leaves, with the purple parishioners peeking out. And that made me think, when you were kids and you knew this is a church, this is a steeple, open the doors and see all the people. And I was like, so when he wrote that line, that very simple, I saw that in my mind. And when he looked at that little mint growing up, that's what came to his mind. That little, it's like a little purple parishioner. He says the parishioners being the flowers and pouty ones. Next to that is an ivy whose purple petals yearn open, bearing their tonsils. And to the far end of the quartet is a lilac flower, or flowers, as there are at least 21 open blooms on this stem. These tiny flowers are coronets of fragrance, the coronets of spring. Among the purple things I didn't gather today, and easily could have, are red buds, the magnolia that smells of lemons, the inside striped like a tiger, 2 more ground-covery flowers. I've been crawling through gardens in the neighborhood and grape hyacinth, to which the other day my neighbors caught me kneeling and taking deep breaths in the grassy easement between our houses. So, this, my friend Ross has given me a whole new sort of perspective on this idea of how to do gratitude, how to recognize it. Instead of making a list, he's like exploring. And there's a couple other examples I want to share with you. I will say that I had to be a little bit choosy about which ones I chose to say, because he can be kind of colorful. And sometimes I have a hard time saying some of the things he writes, especially since I'm being recorded. But it's worthy. And I love his writing. I mean it doesn't bother me one bit. I just sometimes it's just not my voice. So this one is called Transplanting. Today I have smuggled 3 fig cuttings onto a flight from Philadelphia to Detroit. Truth be told, no smuggling has occurred, given as I was carrying the things open and notorious, their roots tucked into some moist compost in a plastic bag. But smuggling makes it sound more thrilling than what it appears, carrying a few sticks in a bag. And therefore, more like what it is, carrying living creatures for replanting about 700 miles away, which you might have already gone there, given as I've told you already they're figs, is another way of saying I'm carrying joy around in my bag. Actually, right now, it's in the overhead compartment in that plastic bag, probably a little funky with my dirty clothes. This is one of those delights that keeps piling up, as the fig tree I took these cuttings from in Stephanie's mother's backyard in Frenchtown, New Jersey, was itself made of a cutting from a grove of figs further down the Delaware in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, where my friend Jay's family lived and where his father grew a wonderful garden, including bitter melon, Asian pears, peaches, and yes, these figs. When I first asked if I could transplant some of Mr. Lau's figs, he was moving, and I was heartbroken that the garden would no longer be a sanctuary to me. He said yes. If he even said that, walking me out to the grove of figs beneath his massive chestnut tree, grabbed a pickaxe and started hacking. Anyway, this was a great essay about transplanting those figs and carrying them with him as though they are joy. And this, I mean, it's just really, really moving. So, I need a couple more. A couple more. 44. This one's called Not Only. The peacock that landed in Ingrid's yard, whose long neck was what one might call dark turquoise, which would be a lamentable shorthand, for the iridescence makes it another color entirely, and reminds us how all color is a manifestation of, a meditation on, light. These meditations echoed or multiplied in the gauzy oculi, looking skyward from its long tail. But Ingrid's need to share the photo with me as I was walking toward the buffet at Samira, the Afghan place, almost tugging me by the elbow to do so, using her index finger and thumb to zoom into its luminous neck, smiling and looking at it, smiling and looking at me looking at it, me smiling and looking at her looking at it, which is simply called sharing what we love, what we find beautiful, which is an ethics. Wow. And that's another one, talking about that iridescent color of the feathers on a peacock. It's like, that's inhabiting my mind right now. He's sharing it with me too. So that invitation, that question about when we feel most aware of what we have to be grateful for, when we share it. He shares it in his writing, which I find extraordinary. I'm not this kind of writer, but he is, and I accept that sharing. My sharing comes in a little different form. Like, this is one example. Sharing the sharing, right? And this one about the sanctity of trains. The sanctity of trains. Something I've noticed riding on Amtrak trains, like the one I'm on right now between Syracuse and Manhattan, is that people leave their bags unattended for extended periods of time. Maybe they go to the end of the car to use the bathroom, or sometimes they go to the far end of the train to the cafe. My neighbor on this train, across the aisle and one row up, disappeared for a good 20 minutes, her bag wide open, computer peeking out, not that I was checking. She is not unusual in this flaunting of security, otherwise known as trust, on the train. Nearly everyone participates in this practice of trust, without recruiting a neighbor across the aisle to keep an eye on my stuff while I use the restroom, which seems to be a coffee shop phenomenon. Trusting one's coffee shop neighbor, but not the people in line, etc. I suppose, given the snugness of the train, especially if it's full, one might speculate that there's a kind of eyes on the streetness at play. Although it seemed to me this morning, when I was first leaving my valuables on the seat for pilfering, my laptop and cell phone glittering atop my sweatshirt and scarf, most everyone was sleeping, and so provided little, if any, eyewitnesses deterrent. I suppose I could spend time theorizing on how it is that people are not bad to each other. But that's really not the point. The point is that in almost every instance of our lives, our social lives, if we pay attention, in the midst of an almost constant, if subtle caretaking. We are in the midst of an almost constant, if subtle, caretaking. That feels like a hug. I love that. I love that. Offering elbows at crosswalks, letting someone else go first, helping with the heavy bags, reaching what's too high or what's been dropped, pulling someone back to their feet, stopping at the car wreck or the struck dog. The alternating merge, also known as the zipper, this caretaking is our default mode. And it's always a lie that convinces us to act or believe otherwise. Always. Wow. So I, for one, am ready to put aside my gratitude journal and my lists of things and open up a field guide and start recognizing what's unfolding without labeling it and without quantifying it and without choosing this thing or that thing. Because the whole point of this is evidence of God. And as we all know, there is nowhere where God is not. All creation. Microphone over to Alyssa, please.
I'm confused on how we experience or say what we're grateful for without labeling it.
Oh. Yeah, that's a valid question, because one of the things I love about Ross's writing is how he describes things. He describes them in the sense that I can see it in my mind and I can feel it. And I feel that hug when his words describe this caretaking. I think the difference is that from an elementary perspective, from someone who's maybe just starting down this path, from an elementary perspective, they might put on their list, I prefer coffee and not tea. Or I prefer blue and not green. I prefer hot running water and not cold showers, kind of thing. So there's a choosing, there's a quantifying, because the truth is that all of our lists of all of our blessings and everything that we're grateful for, if we really, really get deep and we ask the question, what if this precious object that I'm so grateful for that my mother passed down to me, what if it were to get broken or chipped? What if that teacup had a chip in it? Would I still appreciate it? How about that relationship? What if that person moved away or stopped calling me, didn't write to me? What if I didn't feel like I was the most important person in their life anymore? Would I still be grateful for that relationship? So those are all the qualifiers around gratitude. Like what we're grateful for and why. is it conditional? So this practice, the practice of not labeling, is taking the conditions off. It's not that you don't see it, that it doesn't remind you of, childhood nursery rhymes about the church and the steeple and the people and not those not giving up that kind of association, but that we don't label things as good or bad. It's all God. It's all evidence of God. Every bit of it. Even the things that don't look like that. When we see that someone has littered there's trash on the side of the highway, or there's, a car wreck, or there's a forest fire, or there's those things that are painful to witness, that they seems to damage the beauty that we're so drawn to. All of those things are also evidence of God. So the invitation is to expand. Yeah. Oh, okay. You got to butt in. Yeah. Thanks, Hallie.
So, in talking about all of this, it's so easy to label things as black or white. There is not a gray area for things, and I think a lot of the time, that's the way it is. And finding that gray area is really what I'm hearing, Is it good? Is it bad? It doesn't need a label to it, and that's kind of the gist of what I'm getting you saying, is that move into the gray area, see things more for what they are rather than is it this way or is it that way? And that's where judgment comes in, if it's this way, then, or it's this way, but if you can really dive into the whole realm of actually it's not anyway. It's not anyway, and finding that it takes some work, because our minds quickly want to just go to, no, it's this way, or it's this way.
Indeed, they do.
And the more you can live in the gray, the happier you will be, because the expectation isn't there. And I think we live in a world of expectation, from others, from life, from what we want and what we think and what we see, what we smell sometimes even. And if we can rid ourselves of that expectation and just live with acceptance and what it is, instead of really going there, in our brain, because, a lot of what we think and feel comes from other people training us to think that way, and
Indeed.
We don't have to think that way. We don't have to do that. So, this is a really great concept this morning, and thank you.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us, we've never, we've been trained to, think a certain way. So.
And what you're zeroing in on, Hallie, is allow what is to be.
Yeah.
I allow what is to be. And the very,
that's God.
the very rich Buddhist practice of non-resistance.
I have something to add to that, actually.
Okay, and then Penny.
So it does tie back in, I think, to kind of the Garden of Eden, where the division between man and God came through the knowledge of good and evil, where it's not that something is good or evil, it's just the knowledge that, we have this distinction, we have this difference in our head, rather than saying it just is. It's, it's the Tao, it's the flow, it's whatever you want to call it, but it really just is. You don't need to label it. It's the energy behind it that matters.
Yeah. That is absolutely on point, Penny.
What's been coming up for me really strongly, and Adam just said too, the energy. For me, it's the feelings. It's not labeling. It's just the feelings of the day that lead to the gratitude. So, I'm just into the feeling of it.
Yeah, how it feels. Reverend Pam.
I think in some ways it comes back to what is the intention underlying whatever is going on. And I was thinking about the we are all, each one of us, an expression of the divine, and there's an intention that comes out as who I am, who you are, whatever, the gifts that we each share that you talked about, Brenda.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the intention of people being on the train and trusting each other, there's the intention of being, of just trusting in that, being in the moment, and that everything is okay. And the example that came up for me to explain this is the intention of parenting. And so we're grandparents, and we have a granddaughter she's 15 months old now. Ella, she's just a joy. And her parents, Michael's son and our daughter-in-law, have been using the thing of feeding her. Well, I forget what the word is today, but anyway, she's eating mushy broccoli at 4 months. It's like, and I'm going, say what? This is so different. But then I think back to when my mother raised us, and then the intention that we raised our children. So we knew better. We knew how to do this better, and we discovered the new way of doing it. And then here is the next generation doing the same thing. So they, rather than offering my opinions about how you should do it in that judgmental framework of teaching them the right way to do it, I've learned to shift into enjoying their intention of being good parents, and being in that moment, and seeing that expression of the divine, and say, there's many, many ways to do this. I don't have a monopoly on how to do it, and so it's really brought me a lot more joy, of being grateful for their intention, which is uniform throughout the generations and throughout people around the world. What is their intention? It comes back to our family and love.
And what a blessing you are to your family, because the common reaction is, that's not the right way to do this. Mm-hmm. That you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I started it.
You are a blessing to your family.
So in studying biodynamic healing, we are all essentially energy. That is all that we are. Yes, we have this, bodily makeup, and we have these wonderful cells within us that keep us alive, and our body does what it needs to do without us intentionally thinking about it or wanting anything. Okay. And so when you come into contact with anything, that's what you're going to feel, is that energy.
The energy.
And so if you can trust that, based upon feeling, that really will guide you and help you, because, a lot of times, we don't, our thought, the first thought is not always the right thing, and we don't always know what's going on. And, it's so important to really try and understand that, as a child, I was very empathic, and I would run into people sometimes. There was a man in an elevator once as a child, and he scared the hell out of me. And I just knew that I didn't need to be, there's something wrong with this person. I don't want to be in this elevator with this person, And you could just sense these things, and I think as children, we still are so connected in that way. And then, we grow up and we get less connected. But I've always kind of stayed connected in a weird, strange way. It's a gift.
That's a gift.
I do massage, and, I sense and feel people through my hands and energetically. But I would just say that, her first thought is not always the right thought, and that, sometimes we need to just really.
And that's where the gift of the breath comes in.
Yeah.
We can stop. We can take a breath.
I love somatic breathing. It's really good for you. It releases a lot of trauma and energy. If you've never done it before, I would suggest it.
Thank you.
I'm grateful this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I know I've run over a little bit of time. I want to close very briefly with another thought I did not think. when I remember that I am loved beyond measure, then I fear nothing. Fearing nothing, I am free to love all that is, for all is God. And so it is. And so it is. All is evidence of God. Thank you.